Good day, everyone. My name is Hanie Bendaño, and today I am going to report about the chapter 25, which is the Industrial Revolution. So, the beginnings of industrialization. Industrial revolution means the greatly increased output of machine-made goods that has begun in England in the middle of 1700s. So, according to the book, industrial revolution started in England and soon scattered from the different parts of the world. Before the Industrial Revolution happened, people manually wove textiles or used hands in weaving textiles. However, as new machines started to invented by the different people and individuals, the works become easier, faster, and less time effort using the new machines inventions. And they started to spread from the England throughout the different or like throughout the continental Europe and Northern America. So you would be asking what part of England does this industrial revolution exist? It was on the Great Britain. So industrial revolutions begin in Britain. In what way? This is through agricultural revolution. We have to remember that this revolution started on 1700s to 1900s. Anyways, at this time, since England covered or surrounded by farms from small farmers, at and at 1700s, these wealthy landowners bought the land of village farmers and built fences and or hedges on it. So the small size farms or village farmers become a larger field, and these were owned by wealthy landowners. Well, as these farms they created new inventions and ideas on farming, which led or become a starting point of innovations or highlights or give lights to this agricultural revolution. And these includers, at this time, they began to create methods on how to harvest higher quality crops as well as new ideas on harvesting crops. So these includers method have two important results. First, landowners tried new agricultural methods. Second, landowners forced small farmers to become tenant farmers and move into the cities. So since small farmers already sold their farm to wealthy landowners, these landlords forces farmers to become tenant farmers. When we say tenant farmers, these are one who resides on land owned by a landlord. So they have to work on the land of the landowners and move to the cities since their land was already bought by these wealthy landlords. And Jethro Tull um made this he was one of the scientific farmer whom invented a speed reel in 1701. He made these inventions as to address the problem of the unsuccessfully way of sowing seeds by scattering it to the ground as the usual way. So these inventions allows farmers to house seeds, to sow or like plant seeds in a well-spaced rows and in specific depths, which helps the seeds rooted fully, and this eventually improve the crop yields. And crop rotation also one of the best development by the scientific farmers in that time. This crop rotation is a process by would be a process where like this a farmer planted wheat, and while in the next year another crop will be planted. This will help the soil restore its nutrients, which helps the soil produce a larger amount of production, and not just in terms of farming but also improvements on the in terms of the livestock or for animals breeding. So the livestock breeders improves their methods too by allowing only the best sheep or animals to breed, and this helps them to produce higher quality and amount of animals. Like for example, what Robert Bakewell did and how his ways on improving his livestock by allowing best breeders to breed, were followed by many people. Uh, I mean, his ways were encourage other people to follow, and that time this livestock really improve and develop widely. So why industrial revolution began in England? First, in addition to a large population of workers, natural resources also was very extensive in the small island. So these natural resources included water power and coal to power new machines, iron ore to construct machines, tools and buildings, rivers for inland transportation, harbors from which merchants ships set sail. So aside from that, Britain also expanding economy to support industrialization and political stability. They developed banking system that led many investors or businessmen and even people to invest machinery for expanding their operation. While the growth trade and overseas prosperity in economy and a climate of progress led to the increase of demand for goods. They also had all factors of production, including the land, labor, and capital. So as we have learned that they already have a vast ownership of land, and in terms of labor, population on Britain also was very large, and those workers have the labor force were very extensive, and as well as in terms, if we're talking about capital, there are many wealthy people living on that area, and if that if the capital was an issue, then there's no problem about that for them. So these inventions of many of different people spur industrialization. First, the changes in textile industry. So industrial revolution began in Britain was spurred by the revolution of technology, and it started by the inventions for manufacturing textile industry in the late 1700s. So Britain textile industry provided the world with wool, linen, and cloth. The profits of cloth merchants increase when the process of weaving speeds up using the spinners and weavers. So in 1733, John Kay, a machinist, made a shuttle that sped back and forth on wheels. The invention of flying shuttle by John Kay enabled wider cloth to be woven faster, but also but at the same time, this created a demand for yarn uh, that could not be fulfilled. Thus, the major technological advances also associated with industrial revolution were concerned with spinning. That's why in 1764, James Hargreaves invented spinning wheel, or the spinning jenny on from the other books or sources, which allowed one spinner to work 8 threads at a time. However, while these inventions could be operated by using hand. That's why this water frame, invented by Richard Arkwright, could be powered by a water wheel, and thus people and the hand or manually this could not dili na siya this will not be operated manually, but with the use of invention of Richard Arkwright, which was this so-called water frame in 1769. So in 1769, this, as we have learned, that Richard Arkwright invented this water frame, and in 17 69, 1669 for Richard Arkwright. And in 1779, Samuel Crompton invented the spinning mule. So the spinning mule was made by combining features of spinning, jenny, and water frame. And it made thread that's stronger, finer, and more consistent than those spinning machines used by workers before. And in 1787, Edmund Cartwright invented power loom that ran through water power. And eventually, this water frame, spinning mule, and power loom might be bulky and expensive. However, um, these merchants and wealthy merchants use these machines in factories because during the time factories before needs water power to run. So the improvements of textile industry creates improvements not just to textile not just to the textile itself but also to the other industries as well. So in the year 1705, coal miners used steam power pumps in removing water from the depth mine shafts, and the early model of steam engine consumed much amount of fuel. That was the disadvantage of it, and have to spend money to run. And this led James Watt, a mathematical instrument maker, planned and created another model of steam engine, and soon named as Watt's steam engine. This steam engine that was invented by James Watt worked faster and more efficiently while burning less fuel rather than those to the other or like the older model. He James Watt unite with Matthew Boulton in the creation of this model. So steam engine also not just improve the this textile or like this specific industry, but also in terms of the water transportation, because it could also propel boats or run the boat using the steam engine. And Robert Fulton ordered inventions of Watt and Boulton, the new model of steam engine, in order to build a steamboat, which was called the Clermont. This steamboat was successfully made its first trip in 1807 and later carried passengers up and down to the New York's Hudson River. This was very important invention because it helps transporting raw materials and even finished goods from one place to another, while canals of human-made waterways also created on this time. Aside from that, road transportation also developed. So John McAdam equipped road beds with a layer of stones for drainage and placed smooth layer of crashback. It helps heavy wagons to travel without sinking into the mud even during rainy seasons. So after this, the railway age begins. So the steam-driven locomotives. Richard Trevithick won a bet of several $1,000s in 1804, and he did this by hauling 10 tons of iron over nearly 10 miles of track in the steam-driven locomotives. And this led other British engineers to make improvements on his version. When we say locomotives, it is any type of vehicle, a train that time, a train that time or a truck that was powered by engines, and in that time it uses steam engines actually. And in 1825, the railroad line was opened through the ideas of George Stephenson from Yorkshire coal to the fields to the ports of Stockton on the North Sea. In the North Sea. As this news spread throughout the Britain, the Northern England entrepreneurs wanted also to connect the railroad line to the port of Liverpool with the inland city of Manchester. So, this Manchester is a name of a town on that time. So, in 1829, competition on having the best locomotives was made, and unfortunately, there is nothing to be compared on the rocket invented by Stephenson and his son. So the Liverpool-Manchester Railway was officially opened in 1830 and such amid an immediate success. So the railroad revolutionized in Britain. So there are four major effects of inventions and perfections of locomotives. First, railroads spurred industrial growth by giving manufacturers as a cheap way to transport materials and finished products. So through these railroads, it would be easier for the manufacturers to travel from one place to another and transport their raw materials and finished products from one place to another through the use of these railroads. And the railroad boom created hundreds and thousands of new jobs for both railroad workers and miners, because in order for this railroad to form or establish, the needs of thousands of railroad workers was rampant. In order for this to finish fastly or directly, and these miners provided iron for trucks and coal for steam engine to function. That's why during the time, the formation or the establishment of railroads created jobs, not just for workers and railroads, but also for the miners. And the third one is that the railroad boosted agricultural and fishing industries, which could transport products to distant cities. And lastly, it helps people to travel easier while encourage people to take distant jobs. Since the cities, we know the cities were already industrialized and many jobs opportunities could be seen there. So people on the rural area could easily find jobs and seek jobs on there and even live there. And those who never live there, or like they have no house to stay there, would easily get back on their home through the use of this railroad or railways. Next, this industrialization also changes life. So as this industrialization arises in Great Britain, it helps people have a better and quality of living. However, in the other side of that, it also given them suffering as the machine production grows. People might easily get better jobs and plenty jobs opportunities, but the dark side of that is that the the environment of workers was unhealthy, pollution to air and water was rampant, and child labor spreads at that time. And as this in 1800s or to 1850s, European cities boast its inhabitant, which was the period of urbanization, where the city building rises, and the movement of people to cities also was rampant. And in London, Britain's capital city, the population exploded and became the largest city in Europe. And no cities could ever challenge the industrial leadership of London. Like for example, in London, Birmingham and Sheffield become the center of iron smelting, while Leeds and Manchester become a textile manufacturing. And in the port of Liverpool, Manchester formed the center of bustling cotton industry. So there are chances for people to have jobs, and as well as the rises urbanization also existed in these cities as these factories grows, or in this industrial factories buildings grows. And aside from that, through the establishment of the different industries, the living conditions changes as well for those people. And first one is the cities lack sanitary codes or building controls. As the cities grow rapidly, they have no development plans, sanitary and building codes. Moreover, they have no housing, education, protection for the people who poured in from the countryside to seek jobs. Housing, water, social services were scarce as well. The rapid change to machine production initially caused people suffering due to um, unhealthy working conditions, and the air and water conditions were polluted, and the ills of labor were rampant as well. So according to the study of Great Britain in 1842, the study revealed that in one large city, the working class people have an average lifespan of 17 years only, comparing to those who live in rural area, that is 38 years old. This was because most of those non-concreted this was because how the life of humans in that area in this part were very unhealthy, rather than those living in the rural areas, because the industries, the factories, the chemicals that the factories use, and also it caused danger for those workers, for and all the things were like already polluted, and they could not live in a well ventilated area because it the area already was filled with industrial factories, industries, and other things that let the air, water become fresh as it as much as possible, rather than those living on the rural area. It was the also most of the roads were not concreted and have no drains, and garbages collected could be piled on them. Aside from that, workers have no safe, wide space and well ventilated homes. Instead, they have to live in a dark, dirty shelters while their families were living in one bedroom. And as you can really see in this part, that's why we could really assume that the life of them were like they really suffered, and their health was very have a problem on this particular situation, rather than those people who living on the rural, where there's a wide space, and they could breathe fresh air, and so and someone somewhat like that. And aside from that, the sickness was also widespread on this is most especially this cholera. So epidemics of the deadly disease cholera regularly swept through the slums of the Great Britain's industrial cities. A person can get We have to know that a person could get this cholera by drinking water or eating food contaminated with cholera bacteria. In an epidemic, the source of contamination is usually the faces of the infected person that contaminates water or food. The disease can spread rapidly in areas where with inadequate treatment of sewage and drinking water. So the water were already polluted, and there are many bacteria living there. Well, people living in this particular city, have no choice but just drink what they could drink, what they could access. And aside from that, the working conditions also changes. Have industrialization also affects the working conditions of workers. So the average worker spends 14 hours a day at the job and 6 days a week. So the factory owners hope to increase production of goods, and the desire to keep and through because of their desire to keep their machines running, that's why they let the workers work for 14 hours a day at the job and 6 days a week. This would not change as what they experience when they still work on their farms. And they saw a little improvement on their lives and working conditions. They saw a little improvement in their lives, like what they expected when they sold their farms to the wealthy landlords. While in terms of working conditions, they have a little improvement, like they have no improvement in their salaries, while they suffered a lot on the how they were treated on those landlords or the one who managed the factory. That's why since this industry also poses dangers for workers, this reason led one group such as workers organization called Luddites to have a protest. This group was protesting using the machinery in a fraudulent and deceitful manner. They realized that as a laborer or worker, they saw a little improvement on their lives and working conditions. So they smashed the machines they've been working to, thinking that it's the reason why they lost their jobs. And in 1811, they attacked the factories in northern England due to the poor living conditions. They always have rioted outside the factories, and most especially the mills of Manchester. So the mills of Manchester provides an healthy place for poor people who work there. So in this place, those workers have really experienced an healthy place because it was dark, dirty, and the owners never have a maintenance of cleaning the factories that these workers also breathe in, and there is no well ventilated area in their workplace. That's why the people work there really suffered a lot. And on the other hand, wealth flower from such factories. And if you could observe that in on these mills of Manchester, only those owner of the factories or the wealthy people or wealthy merchants only benefited in this kind of industries. And while those poor people or the people who work on these factories suffered a lot without even changes on their living, and especially receive beneficial on how they were treated by the owners, and as well as in terms of their salary conditions also never rises as well. So workers aging 6 and above would receive beating in order to maintain a weekend. So as we have learned that in order for the factory to keep running, in order for them to receive a higher production or like maintain the production of goods that they expected, they have to let the even children receive beating in order for them to maintain a weekend. That we have to think that children really hope to play, like they love to play, like sleep, like taking a rest, rather than really have a serious life in working and the fields and other areas of workplace. So this is how the mills of Manchester. This is what the workers, especially the children, experience on these industries in this the mill of this the mills of industry in Manchester, or in the town of Manchester. So this this industrialization also spreads not just in Britain but also from the other to the other countries. So industrial revolution in United States. In in the industrialization that began in Britain eventually spreads to the United States and to the other continents in Europe. Britain supposedly keeps all their strategies as a secret and forbid all professionals or elite workers from leaving out their country, knowing that through the ideas of those workers or professionals, other countries as well could copy their models or copy their ideas or strategies in their inventions, and let other countries also become an industrialized one, just as what they experience or like what they receive, what they felt on that time. However, this on 1739, Samuel Slater, a British miller, immigrated to the United States and built a spinning machine. So he immigrated illegally. Anyways, he built a spinning machine based on his memory and a partial design as he was still a mill worker in Britain. After that year, the first factory in the United States opened by Moses Brown using this latter's machine. However, this machine only produced one thread. That's why in 1813, Machine Cabot Lowell of Boston and four other investors revolutionized the American textile industry as based on the invention of Samuel Slater. And as they earned enough money from weaving industry, they made another operation in building to the town of Massachusetts. And in the late 1820s, the town had become a booming manufacturing center and a model for other towns. So the later expansion of the U.S. industry. So as the technological boom of the United States were usually due to the help of Britain, such as the wealth of natural resources, new inventions, population, and as well as the railroad expansion. So, this natural resources includes the oil, coal, and iron, a burst of inventions such as electric bulbs in the telephone, and a swelling population that consumed new manufactured goods. The advantage of having a large population is that they could have a labor force while their products could easily be consumed by their own population as well. Aside from that, the railroads of Britain played a major role in stockyards and monopolies. Grain industries prospered by selling products to the rest of the country, and that would be transferred or transported using through the inventions of railroads. But as what we have tackled a while ago, that in order for the I mean in order for the in order to pass the way using railroads, they have to pay for the tax or the specific amount, since we all know that in a specific area na ay guard to collect the money before they could pass through. That's why the railroad itself could really had given and considered as a profitable business in Britain, which was very in demand for other countries as well. So aside from that, the rise of corporations also occurs. So when we say corporations, it means business owned by stockholders who share on its profits but are not personally responsible for its debts. And in the late 1880s, large corporations such as Standard Oil, founded by John D. Rockefeller, and the Carnegie Steel Company, founded by Andrew Carnegie, sprang up. In order to make big profits, they have to control their own industries in every aspect. So through reducing the cost of producing goods, this is why workers have to work longer hours but receive lower salaries, while on the other hand, stockholders already earned higher profits, and corporate leaders also were the only fortunate on this on this on this the different uh, industries that they had built. So through industrialization, this industrialization also transfer from any places such as in Belgium. So a Lancashire carpenter named William Cockerell illegally made his way to Belgium in 1799, and his son built an enormous enterprise in eastern Belgium, producing steam engine and railway locomotives. Just as Samuel Slater, he carried secret plans for building spinning machinery. It This William Cockerell also build spinning machinery and produces a variety of mechanical equipment such as a steam engine and these railway locomotives. And not just that, the Germany also industrializes. Around 1835, Germany began to copy the British model. In the late 1880s, the Imperial Germany becomes both industrial and military giant. So, this Germany imported equipments and engineers from Britain, while some manufacturers in Germany sent their children to build railroads to connect manufacturing cities. Aside from that, as the German economy developed, they started to develop military power as well. So in that way, Germany both become an industrial and military giant. Now think let us think what are the impacts of industrialization. So the Industrial Revolution shifted the world balance of power. It increases competition between industrialized nations and poverty in less developed countries. And it also um, creates global inequality. This global inequality rises as well. So the industrialization resulted a wider gap between the industrialized and non-industrialized countries. So, and in order for the factories continue running and fed the workers, it required for those industrialized countries to have a stable amount of raw materials, and these materials comes from less developed countries. So industrial countries just treated those poor countries as market for their manufactured products. And as this this is the reason why British exploiting overseas colonies for their resources and markets, while at the same time other European countries followed their steps by exploiting or seizing colonies, or what we say expansion of imperialism for the reason of maintaining their resources when like what this Britain did. So when we talk about imperialism, this means the policy of extending one's country's rule over many territories, which could let them have more power and wealth, especially for those already a wealthy nations. Aside from that, the development of middle class created great opportunities for education and democratic participation. This fueled powerful movement for social reforms. So between the years 1700s until 1900s, the agriculture, production, transportation, and communication revolutions shifted the lives of people in Western Europe and the United States. Basically, it gave Europe a tremendous power economically, but in the other side of that, the economy of Asia and Africa still was sticking into agriculture and small workshops. Through the efforts of people at the middle class level, education opportunities has been established, especially in terms of production of the technologies, somewhat like that. And it helps individuals participate in the development of community as well, through engaging labors or inventing new facilities and other things that involves participation. And especially this led to a powerful movement of reforming the society. Now let us think about reforming the industrial world. So since how the 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 treatment between those wealthy people and the poor really was an issue on that time. So many reformers started uh, to give their perspectives that the government have a great role in the controlling the industrialization in a specific economy. And one of this reform or reformers, or like the organization or like the ideas of perspectives of people, was the laissez-faire. It refers to the economic policy of letting owners of industry and business set working conditions without interference. This term is French for let do, or by extension, let people do as they please, meaning let people do as they please, and let people like the wealthy people do whatever they want in terms of in terms of doing their best business without the control of the government and other people from their business. And this laissez-faire thinkers such as Thomas Malthus, Adam Smith, and David Ricardo opposed the government efforts to help poor workers. They thought that creating minimum wage laws and working conditions could uphold the free market system, lower the profits, since they have to share their incomes, like their business to the tax to the government, and undermine the production of wealth in the society, since they have to control the government have give need to give the laws about the working conditions, and how the factory owners control them as a worker. So um, aside from that, this since the business leaders have the idea that the government should stay out of business and economic affairs. However, reformers believe that the government will have to play an active role for addressing the situation of those people, and at the same time, workers receive to get rights and proper protection as well. So at this point, they formed um, labor unions, and as well as um, to increase their influence. And one of these was this atong what I have said a while ago, this laissez-faire, this laissez-faire. However, this, according to Adam Smith, the economic liberty guaranteed economic progress, while David Ricardo argued that in the market system, if there are many workers and abundant resources, then the labor and resources are cheap. They more focus on capitalism, wherein these factory owners or the wealthy merchants have the role of controlling the economic terms of the state or the city or the country. When we say capitalism, it is the technological system in which factors of production are privately owned and money is invested in business ventures to make profit. And this, they thought that this idea brought about industrial revolution. However, um, through their through their perspectives, this led to the rise of socialism. So this utilitarianism um, uh, is a theory of Jeremy Bentham, whom claimed that individuals should be free to pursue his or her advantage without interference from the state. However, um, John Stuart Mill started to question the capitalism and push for reforms in the legal and in prison system and in education as well. So John Stuart, um, in this socialism, these thinkers believe that wealthy people or the government must take action to improve people's lives, as we have learned a while ago. That um, this John Stuart Mill, he wished to help ordinary working people with policies that would lead to a more equal divisions of profits. So if factory owners benefited the industries, those workers also should benefit from it, and they should treat them as how they should be treated. And the government also have the role in intervening this kind of issue for the improvement of the economy. So the government should control the factories, miners, railroads, and other industries to end poverty and promote equality. So these socialists argued that the government should plan the economy rather than depend the free market capitalism to do the job, which was the perspectives of those laissez-faire thinkers. I mean. Aside from that, the existence of Marxism, a radical socialism occurs. So, when we say Marxism, this was the writings of German journalist named Karl Marx, which was a radical type of socialism. At this time, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels were united and make a 23 pamphlet, which that is called the Communist Manifesto. And if we are talking about Friedrich Engels, his father was a German. He was the son of a German whom owned a textile mill in Manchester. That's why they have chances to see the situation or the real situation of the workers and the owners as well on a deeper concept. So they argue that human society has always been divided into warring classes. They wrote that while wealthy control the production of goods, the poor perform back-breaking labor under terrible conditions. So according to them, industrial revolution among only benefited most the wealthy while impoverished the poor. And in 1900s, Marxism inspired revolutionism such as Russia's Lenin, China's Mao Zedong, and Cuba's Fidel Castro. So these leaders adapted the beliefs of Marx to their own specific situation. And in addition with that, the gap between the rich and poor within the industrialized countries failed to widen in the way that Marx and Engels predicted, mostly because of the various reforms enacted by the governments. Now, this through the reasons on how the workers treated by the factory owners, and um, how they experience with us through this industrialization. That's why these labor unions existed. When we say unions, these are the voluntary workers joined the labor association for press reformation. And when we say unionization, this refers to the unions engaged in bargaining and negotiations between workers and their employers. And if factory owners refuse their demands, which is to have a better working conditions and higher pay on their work, the union members or those workers and laborers could strike or refuse to work. Since the government saw these unions as a threat to order and stability of the city, because they even rejected the threat of jail or job loss and joined unions and strikes for a purpose. Finally, even the government wasn't agreed for this. They still gave chance unions to do their organization or their purpose. So in 1875, trade unions in Britain won the right to strike and picket peacefully and built up membership about 1 million people. And there are also many labor unions happened in that time. And in terms of reform, the formation of the laws, the reformers and unions forced political leaders to look into the abuses caused by industrialization. Therefore, investigation to child labor and working conditions in factories and mines have resulted them to pass the Factory Act of 1833. This Factory Act of 1833 was a law to make it illegal to children to work under 9 years old. Aside from that, those children aging 9 to 12 years old will not work more than 8 hours a day, and young people from 13 to 17 years old could not work more than 12 hours. On the other hand, women and children were already prohibited to work underground or in mining according to the Mines Act of 1942. And in terms of the 10 Hours Act of 1847, it limits the working hours and days for women and children whom was working in factories. And aside from that, this National Child Labor Committee in 1904 ended the child labor. Was established to end the child labor fully. So many reformers also joined together in solving this issue on banning the child labor while setting maximum hours of working as well, and other laws established to solve this particular situation as well. So this before the industrialization, negative impact only was the response to these reform movements. However, as time passed by, working improvements and extending to the right to working class tries to end class already was included. It also tries to end slavery and promote new rights for women and children. So these reformers tried about the abolition of slavery, and William Wilberforce, a highly religious man, was a member of a parliament who led the fight for abolition, which is to end the slave trade and slavery in the British Empire. So the parliament passed a bill to end slave trade and slavery in British Empire, and even he was already retired on that parliament in 1825, he still continued to fight the freedom of slaves and successfully abolished slavery in its empire in 1833. Soon, the different countries as well ended their slavery in its own places after the British Empire and have a great victory, freeing a large multitude of population of slaves. Aside from that, the women's right was also part of the movement of reformers. These movements for women's rights began in the United States as early as 1848. After trying to fight about the abolitions of slavery, women well started to think why their rights this was denied. I mean, due to their gender. That's why, as I have read earlier that on the screen that it begins in this women's right began or started. All over the world, women activists started to develop, joined, and found the International Council for Women in 1888. That's why the the women's right was being addressed on that time, and not just that, the reform spread not just on specific areas, but also not just in terms of the child labor, women's right, but also in terms of education as well, and on the other parts of it. So Horace Mann of Massachusetts, one of the most prominent U.S. reformers, favored free public education for all children. So by 1880s, many countries started public school system. And lastly, in 1831, Alexis de Tocqueville was contrasted the brutal conditions in American prisons to extended the liberty of American society. So he saw how terrible it was for the prisoners who were already released, still experienced a brutal condition for the society of America. So he aimed to provide prisoners with a means of lead to useful lives upon release. And through industrialization, many things has been changed, and the experiences of people on as the city industrialized also given a benefit on changing the lives of people as well, not especially to the children, the child labor. So there are laws implemented to address the child labor, where the children have a limited right. I have to not engage in dangerous works, especially on factories. And not just that, the children also receive education, just as the reformers aimed, and it was applied from their society, where the public school system were implemented on the different countries. And moreover, in terms also for the rights of women also have chances to do their part as a human being, and they have an equal rights to men, and they can be they can be able to receive equal salaries without bias to men. And especially other aspects of life or other areas of life, such as those conditions of those prisoners are slowly become better because of the movements of reformers, as this movement spread from one place, from Britain to the other parts of the state or other countries as well. So overall, that's how industrialization changes the lives of people on on that area, based on according to what they have experienced on this industrial revolution exist. So that ends my report. Thank you for listening.